Over the years, though, just seeing how our kids have blossomed, they've become more independent and how they are just really excelling.
We stayed in the United States, but we kind of bounced from coast to coast.
Being in the Navy, that would be about right.
Yes.
Welcome to the Homeschool Journal, a show that unpacks the joys and journeys of the classical homeschool family. Here's your host, Carrie McGraw.
Welcome back to the Homeschool Journal today. Today is Veterans Day, and we are going to celebrate this day together with a couple military homeschool families. These families face challenges about the same as what we do, but I think at a greater magnitude. There's a level of flexibility that they need that I think we can really learn from. So spend today with us and our two military homeschool families as we talk about all of their different moves, what it means to homeschool in the military, and how it has grown and developed their families across the miles. We're going to jump into our show. Well, friends, we're going to welcome Tracy and Andrew Cecil. Now, they are on the phone with me all the way from Germany. Tracy and Andrew, hi, it's so good to have you with us.
Hi, Carrie.
Hello, guten Tag.
Guten Tag. This is my longest distance call ever, and the wonder of technology and all the people that work here to make this happen, and you all making it happen there in Germany. Thank you so much. Now, we are recording this episode, obviously, and we're really close to a special date that we're going to release this on. And so Tracy and Andrew, you being with us today, and we're going to have another friend that I'm calling in from Idaho. So I'm spanning multiple time zones in this call. This is going to release on Veterans Day. So thank you so much for spending this time with us. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So we're going to talk all about military homeschool families. And we really want your insight. And I think that military homeschool families have so much that they can share with homeschool families that aren't military, because you all go through everything that, we go through. Yes, I was a homeschooler for 12 years, but you kind of go through it in this microcosm that not many get to experience. And so you sharing this with us today is going to be fantastic. So let me introduce introduce our guests to you really quick. This is Tracy and Andrew. Now, Tracy worked here in Louisville, Kentucky prior to having children with the Legal Aid Society. So Tracy's a Louisville girl too, and I'm excited to have her here. But let me tell you, when we get to all the places that Tracy and Andrew have been, it'll boggle your mind. Andrew has been in the U.S. Army for 26 years. Now, Andrew, tell us a little bit about what you're doing right now over there in Germany.
Yes, so right now I am assigned to the United States Africa Command. The U.S. military splits the world up into geographic locations, commands, and I work in Africa Command as part of the Joint Operations Center, which is just a operational center that basically takes in all the information and inputs from different units and things like that, and synthesizes that information for our boss.
Okay.
So I'm what's called the chief of operations there.
And
which sounds probably more impressive than it is.
Oh, I doubt that very much, because all I can do is call myself a homeschool liaison and a mom. But you know what? I'm not just a mom. No mom is just a mom. So
that is true.
But
that is very true.
Maybe I can call myself chief of operations of the home. Maybe. Can I have that one? But
absolutely. I think that, and you touched upon it in your introduction, but especially military moms and wives, it is a lot more difficult. And I didn't realize this until a couple of years ago when we were moving, and Tracy helped me understand it when she was talking about that it's different for me and for her.
Mm-hmm.
In the sense that when I go somewhere, there's automatically a place for me to plug in and a place for me to be, my work, and there's people for me to interact with, which are
Right.
the people at work. But for her, that doesn't exist. And so she goes in and there's not those things. And also things that I'd never thought of, like a hairdresser, which for a woman is a lot different than a guy who
Yes, it
just,
is.
I just shaved my head,
That's
basically.
right.
So anyway, it's just very different.
So you all have 3 children, and one is still stateside at Texas A&M, and that's your Mark, and he's 18, and this is his freshman year. You have Gwen, who's 15, and Adam, who's 12, and you all started your homeschool journey in 2015 on one of your moves because you had discovered that, your kids were going to have been in 4 schools in 4 different years. So you took that leap into homeschooling at that time. So let's talk for a minute about all the places that you all have been. Can you name for me all the places you all have been stationed?
So I met Drew in 1999 when he was stationed at Fort Knox.
Okay.
And we got married. And soon after we were married, we moved to Fort Rucker, Alabama. And then we came back to Fort Knox. And then we moved to Fort Worth, Texas. And then we came back to Fort Knox. And then we moved to Conroe, Texas. And then Vicenza is Italy.
Mm-hmm.
And then we came back to Fort Knox, and now we're in Stuttgart. So we keep showing up at Fort Knox.
I have said that about Louisville because I personally have moved away from Louisville 3 times, and it just kind of kept pulling me back in. And I know Fort Knox isn't Louisville, I know, but it's just kind of that surrounding area. And so good, you and I can share that experience. However, no, I have not had traveled this much. And this really kind of brings me to one of the questions I wanted to ask you all about. Family flexibility. All of our homeschool families have to be flexible in their lives, in their lifestyles, in their homes, and their schooling. But you all experience that, like I said before, in a different degree and maybe a greater degree. Tell me a little bit about the challenge of that flexibility being in the military and homeschooling.
I think that the great thing about homeschooling is that it does provide that flexibility, that we're able to travel when, other people are in school and it's a great time to travel. There's not as many tourists, or we're able to, for example, we had a period of time where we spent 3 months in Paris, France with Drew's job that we would not have been able to do had the kids been in traditional school. But we just packed up our books and we drove to Paris, and the kids did school while we were there and had just a wonderful experience.
Wonderful. Well, the farthest I've been is Toronto, Canada. So it doesn't really, maybe that doesn't qualify in your all's world, and Andrew, you said earlier, like you said, when you get somewhere, when you go to a new position, you are automatically plugged in. But Tracy, you're not. So what about the challenge of, having to create new routes again for a homeschooler? Have you felt supported in that? Have there been places for you to plug in?
Well, that's a really good question. I would say that it varies each place we go, and it changes as the kids get older, for sure. When we first started, we had more of a connection with homeschooling co-ops because I think those tend to be geared towards younger children,
right?
Or at least that was our experience when we were in Italy. And so I would say that during that time, the kids really learned and grew closer as a family unit. We did. And they grew closer in their relationships because there wasn't a whole lot of extra, we really didn't find that homeschooling community there. We found that it was just mainly play groups. And then when we moved back to Fort Knox, we had more of, I would say, just not a homeschooling support network, but friends that the kids made in our neighborhood because it was a
Okay.
very kid-friendly neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so kind of moving around without, knowing that there's going to be support for you all on the next move, or I love what you said about the fact that it draws that family closer together. I think that that's something that a lot of homeschool families can say the same thing. I know that that's one of the reasons why I homeschooled was, to draw that close familial relationship with the children at a very young age. But again, in the military, it's as if it's magnified. Andrew, do you find that as you all move around?
Absolutely. And Tracy and I have talked about this, but the decision to homeschool in 2015 really fundamentally transformed the trajectory of our family. I would say, we would say, both of us.
Yes.
We've said that, just in the sense that assignment in Vicenza, where we lived in the area, was somewhat isolated, and we did create friends mainly through Tracy reaching out to other moms, but at the same time, there was an intense period of the family unit growing and coming together.
Mm-hmm.
And those 3 years were really, we feel very foundational to the way our family currently operates. And homeschooling was not really intended for the Cecils to be a long-term solution. To be honest, it was really, we thought it's going to be an Italy thing. Gives us flexibility to go travel and see things. Gives us stability in curriculum, especially with Gwen. But then we moved back to the States and probably not continue it. And when we moved back, all 3 kids were overwhelmingly wanting to stay
Wanting to
homeschooled.
continue.
You
Yes.
were hooked.
Yeah.
You were all hooked, weren't you?
And
Yep.
and I think a large part of that is because of that intensive, that bonding experience.
So how did you find classical homeschooling through Memoria Press? How did that come into your lap and your family?
Well, when we first started talking about homeschooling, it was we were familiar with Highlands Latin coming from Louisville.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, our oldest had been planning to start kindergarten there. And we got orders to move to Texas. And so we were familiar with Memoria Press.
Good.
And because of that, it just made sense to us. We had heard the success stories of the students coming out of Highlands Latin, and were Christian, and so it just made sense for us.
Wonderful. I'm so glad. And yes, that link that, and Highlands Latin is our model school, and that's where my kids are graduating from. And it has been a blessing to really have that in our backyard, but also that, Memoria Press has made it, transportable, that it can go all over the world. That's part of our message here today, is that you take it with you to Italy and to Germany, and we are grateful. We are grateful. So just in wrapping up here with your all's experience, is there any advice that you all would give to really either generally homeschool families, or, specifically military homeschool families?
My advice would be to just do it. I mean, honestly, it was difficult.
Isn't that a slogan?
I know it is. It is. And hopefully it's not cliche, but we were hesitant. I was fearful. I didn't feel like I was well equipped. And I just was concerned how I'm going to do this with 3. And it just, we just did it. And we are so thankful we did. We're so thankful we did. And um, it was hard. Particularly when we first started, just working, figuring it out, right?
Right.
And over the years, though, just seeing how our kids have blossomed and how they've become more independent and how they are just really excelling
Mm-hmm.
across the board. So, and it's just been a great experience for our family.
And I would just echo what Tracy said. And, you have to be realistic. It was incredibly difficult. And Tracy bore the brunt of certainly the first couple months and, figuring out, ordering all the books and things like that. And figuring out sort of the pace of it and how things worked and working with each of the kids
Right.
and trying to get them started. And that is difficult. And so I would tell people that it is difficult initially. Don't. So I would say don't be discouraged. Tracy says,
Thank you.
just do it.
Thank
And I
you.
agree with that. And there's going to be hard times. And each of our kids, we've been doing this now we're in our 7th year. Each kid has gone through a phase where it's been a challenge. Where you sort of think, okay, I've got this one, and he can, he's totally independent. All I got to do is sort of check in with them, and then you figure out, nope, you got to have a little bit more of an active role, and it's a constantly changing construct, but it's so worth it. So just do it. Don't be discouraged, and it is really, in our view, Tracy and I's, really worth the effort and the what you put into it.
And thank you, Andrew, because I know that, earlier Tracy shared, maybe it wasn't on air, but, how integral you are to the process. And I would love for all dads to hear that. And to Andrew, any specific words for dads out there?
Yes. I mean, you have to. So I've been blessed. I think this was also before we were on air, but just with different schedules and things where I've been able to be more involved. But even if you got a very traditional schedule, assisting with, and when we first started, and Tracy will tell you this, I was really more just in the evenings I would do grading. But being involved in the process and being part of the team, of the whole effort, is very critical. And the other thing I've really found is I actually really, now this isn't every day, but I really do enjoy the days where I'm doing the primary instruction or assistance, really. A lot of it's a lot of the instruction is the kids learning on their own, but the drilling, the drilling of the questions, and engaging on the discussion questions and quotations and things like that. I've really found most times I really enjoy doing that and being with the kids and getting to spend time with them and see them, just seeing that the light bulb come on different times and is encouraging.
Well, I'm so glad as a dad that you are jumping in there and just do it. And, that's the encouragement that we want to send out to all of our families is jump in there. Don't be beleaguered by the discouraging moments. Understand that all homeschool families, need flexibility and can work within, all of these different challenges that they are faced with. So I want to thank you all for your service, both of you, to this country. You mean a lot to us. My family has a history of service to the country. if I may share, my son has received a 4-year scholarship to Air Force ROTC. So we are embarking upon that as he graduates high school.
Awesome.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That is great.
Thank you. We'll see what the Lord has in store for him. But God bless you all on all the things that you do for us, because I know that it is a family sacrifice, and it is a family gift that you all give to this country. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Carrie.
Thank you.
All right.
Yes.
We'll talk to you soon. Okay, Homeschool Journal friends, we are back with our number 2 guest today, Jody Grammer. Welcome back.
Thanks for having me again. I'm glad to get a chance to chat again.
I know. And so, I don't know anyone out there that hasn't been through season 1 of Homeschool Journal. Jody was with me for a Lenten and Easter observances podcast. So you're becoming quite the podcast guest, Jody. You're very popular.
Yeah. I guess the holiday special, I will.
Well, that's true, because as I told our previous guests, even though we have to record this a little bit ahead of time, we're not that far ahead of time. This is coming out on Veterans Day. So I'm so excited to be able to recognize military homeschool families in this way and share with all of our listeners the experiences that you all have that sometimes are unique, but sometimes are really very shared experiences. So let me introduce everybody to you again, in case I didn't catch, Homeschool Journal season 1. But Jody has 5 children, and she and her husband have settled now in Idaho. And her husband served in the U.S. Navy for 20 years before retiring. But so did Jody. Before having children, she served in the U.S. Air Force as a Russian linguist, which of course just boggles my mind and tells me how intelligent my friend Jody really is. And but their children range in ages from 2 to 14, and they started homeschooling in 2014, probably for some of the reasons that we're going to talk about today. And Jody, being a mother after my own heart, she loves to sit down and pour through her classical teacher magalog. I call it a magalog, because I just love to sit and read it, and I highlight it and I mark, all the wonderful articles that are in there. And then Jody also loves baking, and that's a big thing in my home. That's a big thing, Jody.
Yes.
So anyway, Jody, let's talk about your experience as a military wife for so many years, raising children, homeschooling in the military. First of all, can you tell me all the different places you all have been stationed?
Well, my husband's first assignment in the Navy was in Whidbey Island, Washington. Mm-hmm. And we stayed in the United States, but we kind of bounced from coast to coast.
Being in the Navy, that would be about right.
Yes. So we went to DC twice, but not concurrently. We were in Virginia Beach for a little while. And our last duty station, he was in Monterey, California as well for grad school through the Navy. And our last duty station was in Lemoore, California, which is interestingly very landlocked part of California, but an interesting base to be at. There's lots of jets out there, so it's very fun. Okay,
so again, bouncing all across the United States. Again, another level of flexibility that it takes, which I talked to our last guests about that level of flexibility. So what are some of the greatest challenges that you as a homeschooler have had to face in this time while your husband and you have been in service?
Well, I would say the greatest challenge, I think, is probably having to pick up and move maybe. This is very specific, but in the spring.
In the spring?
Moving before the school year is quite finished.
Oh, wow.
But you're almost done. Mm-hmm. That was probably one of our more challenging moves. But in general, just getting everybody settled once we get somewhere new is kind of, of course, any move is a little bit awkward getting into a new place, but just getting the kids into new activities and all that. But yeah, the biggest challenge for moves was moving in April.
Moving in April. I would not
Yes.
have thought of that. And because that is something I don't want to think about. When you're trying to finish that school year, you are on the countdown. Like our kids think that they're on a countdown, but no, we are on the countdown as the teaching parent. So what about now? Your husband is retired now, and you look forward to staying settled for just a little while. But what about the transition now for your family?
Well, I would say for the kids, it was very easy. They were very excited to get somewhere, move, and we will have friends that will stay our friends for a while. For me, it was a little more challenging. My husband retired in 2020 of all years. Of all years.
Wait, that's the year that shall not be named, Jody.
Yeah, I invoked it.
It's okay. It's okay.
But so I had told my husband, when he was retiring, this is going to be great, but I want to do it big. I want to have some closure, do a party, do a nice ceremony. And being the year that shall not be named, kind of none of that happened. It was a very anticlimactic end to our career, or his career, and our time in the military. So that was a little bit difficult for me, just not really having
closure, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And for my husband, it was perfect. He just got to kind of ride off into the sunset. But
well put in that regard. Yeah. But didn't you have baby number 5 around that time anyway? So maybe that could be counted as a celebration somewhere around there.
He came in October of 2019.
Okay, so, just before.
Yeah.
Okay.
And but so that was a little bit difficult for me, kind of just it's done and you're gone, and there's not something specifically marking that. But at the same time, I could really see the Lord moving to get us up here to Idaho. We're amongst a bunch of classical Christian homeschoolers and other, co-ops and everything.
So that's amazing that you can say that there are a lot of classical Christian homeschoolers around, because I would imagine that as you moved, one of the things you said was, the challenge was to get somewhere and plug in, especially if it was in the spring, obviously,
right.
But get somewhere and plug in. And I think a lot of our homeschoolers out there, one of the things I talk to them about is they can find groups of homeschoolers, but sometimes they're not classical homeschoolers. Did you experience any of that? And how would you bridge that gap to relate to other homeschoolers, but yet they're not schooling classically?
Yeah, it's very niche. I think I've said before that if you're a homeschooler, you've already set yourself kind of apart. And if you're a classical homeschooler, you've set yourself even more apart. And even to some extent, if you're committed to using Memoria Press, then you just keep you keep drilling down into these
drilling down niches.
Right. But the nice thing about the military community is a lot of times people kind of don't care about that stuff.
Good.
We're just kind of all in it together. And, having a homeschooler meetup, you can have those chats about what are you using and what are you doing and why are you doing this?
Mm-hmm.
And, you can foster a lot of relationships that way of, sharing, well, we use this and, why do you use an entire curriculum from just one publisher?
Right.
And be able to share the benefits of classical homeschooling. And it's grown, I think, in some other ways through other different groups out there. So.
Well, homeschooling itself has grown and incredibly, the census data from 2020 to 2021, beginning of the school year, we had grown as a nation from 5.4% prior to that to 11.1% in that year alone. That's not even including, this school year. They don't have data on this school year. So I think that's amazing. And then, I love what you said about sharing with others what it is that you use. We may not find communities, whether we're military or not, that are Memoria Press communities or people that or classical homeschooling communities, but being able to share that with others is just as important. So, Jodi, do you have any advice for moms out there, whether they're military or not, about the flexibility needed, the challenges of homeschooling and moving or developing your own community?
Yeah, I mean, for us, we were moving every 2 or 3 years
right.
For the last 15 years. So one thing I would say is plug in right away. Like if you are moving or if you're, struggling, starting out homeschooling or struggling to find a community, just get on Facebook, even though it has its problems.
Right.
But get on Facebook, find your city homeschoolers and jump in right away. If you're moving to a new place, I can't recommend getting into a local church as soon as you can, like highly enough. Like that is, I think, a real key as well. But just jump in and be open to making friends, even though you're going to probably move again soon as a military person.
Right.
But even on the other side of that, if you are not in the military and you happen to know a military family, one of the biggest blessings for me was having people willing to be open and willing to develop friendships, even though they knew my location was not permanent.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Just have lifelong friends across the miles because people were willing to do that despite the inevitable goodbyes. So, yeah.
That's beautiful. That's a beautiful word to anybody out there that, our military homeschool families need support in all sorts of different ways. Jodi, did you all, while you were in the military homeschooling, did you feel that support? Did you have resources to turn to?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's different for every place that you're stationed. There's some places where, dads are deployed a lot. So the mom and wife community is very tight knit and there's always something going on. There's other times where, you're kind of scattered. Like if you're in DC, there's people everywhere that,
right.
are associated with the military. So it's kind of like you do your own thing. But I've always found people in every place that we've been stationed that to walk alongside, to be with, on our kind of brief stop in our journey at that location. So I have never felt, isolated or without a lack of, or with a lack of some kind of support, but it always looks a little bit different.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that's true for any of our homeschoolers. But I love what you said, just plug in. Our previous guest just said, just do it. And they were referring to jumping into homeschooling, period. But it's the same thing. Even when you're already in there, if you've got to move, if you've got a big change that has come for your family as a homeschooling family, either just do it or plug in and find something. And I hope that Memoria Press, I know that we are constantly working to make sure that we are supporting our homeschoolers in the ways that we can. You talked about jumping onto Facebook. I know some people are jumping off, but we do have wonderful moms that run a Facebook community for all sorts of different needs, and then our Memoria Press YouTube channel. We're just trying to make sure that we're supporting our homeschoolers and encouraging them in any way that we can. And today, for me, it's this podcast, sharing with, all of our homeschoolers out there, the special needs, the special circumstances, flexibility, challenges of our military homeschool families. So Jodi, thank you for sharing with us today, because I think words of wisdom come from the hearts of moms everywhere. But from those who are in our military, we want to say thank you so much. So thank you, Jodi.
You're welcome. Can I add one more thing real quick?
Of course.
The forum on,
on
Memoria Press.
How can I not say that? And she's advertising for us. Jodi's advertising for us. Okay, Jodi, you're hired.
Well, I just want to say that I I ended up at Sodalitas, 5 years ago, 6 years ago when it started. Because of that forum, I have lovely, lovely friends who I consider lifelong friends because of that forum. So it's not that, it's not that cut and dry for everybody, but I highly recommend the MP forum.
Oh, thank you so much. That warms my heart, and you brought up Sodalitas, which I know we're many months away from that, but we are already planning. And, we didn't get to have your husband, Steve, with us today. Totally understandable. But supporting our dads, saying thank you to our dads, saying thank you to our military families, very important for us today. God bless you, Jodi, and God bless the Bremer family out in Idaho. Okay?
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye, dear.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us today. If you liked our episode, click the thumbs up button below or leave a comment to let us know what you thought. It always helps us to know if we've helped you. You can also click the bell icon and subscribe to the show so that you can stay in touch. Then I'd love for you to share it with a friend. We have many resources here on this channel, so I hope you'll check those out too. I'm Carrie McGraw. Thanks for listening today, and I'll see you next time.